The building stood like a glass cathedral in the heart of Singapore's financial district, reflecting the ambitions of thousands who passed by daily. Olivia Bennet stood at the entrance, holding a simple brown folder containing her credentials. She wore a modest cream blouse and navy skirt, clean but clearly not designer. Her shoes were comfortable flats. Practical for the commute she had taken across the city, she took a breath and stepped through the revolving doors. The lobby felt intentionally intimidating. Everything was white, chrome, or transparent glass. Even the air seemed filtered to perfection. Two receptionists sat behind a curved desk that looked more like a sculpture than furniture. One glanced at Olivia with a quick assessment, then returned to her computer screen. The other raised an eyebrow slightly before looking away. Olivia approached the desk with steady steps. "Good morning. I have an interview scheduled for 9 o'clock. Executive Technology Division." The receptionist checked her screen without enthusiasm. "Name Olivia Bennet." Pause. "Take the elevator to the 42nd floor. Someone will meet you there." Olivia thanked her and walked toward the elevators. Before entering, she felt a sudden tightness in her chest. She turned toward the restrooms tucked behind a decorative panel and pushed open the door inside. She heard quiet sobbing. A young woman stood at the sink, her makeup running down her cheeks. She wore an expensive-looking suit, but her eyes told a story of defeat. When she noticed Olivia, she quickly wiped her face. "Are you all right?" Olivia asked gently. The woman shook her head. "I just came from an interview upstairs. They told me I did not fit their image standards. They said talent includes appearance, and I clearly did not understand that concept." Her voice broke. "I have 2 degrees and 5 years of experience, but none of that mattered." Olivia felt her heart sink. "I am so sorry. That should never happen to anyone." "They made me feel invisible," the woman continued. "Like all my work meant nothing because I did not carry the right handbag or wear the right brand." She grabbed her belongings and headed toward the door. "Good luck with whatever you came here for. You will need it." After she left, Olivia stood alone in the bathroom. She looked at her reflection. Her face showed determination, but also a hint of concern. She straightened her collar, picked up her folder, and left. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt longer than it should. When the doors opened, the atmosphere changed immediately. This floor radiated power and exclusivity. The walls were covered in awards and photographs of executives shaking hands with world leaders. At the end of a long hallway, a glass conference room overlooked the city's skyline. Inside that room sat 5 people. They looked like they had been born wearing business attire. Olivia walked toward the room. Nobody stood to greet her. Nobody smiled. She opened the door. "Good morning. I am Olivia Bennet." Miranda Hastings, a woman in her late 40s with perfectly styled blonde hair and a crimson blazer, looked up slowly. Her eyes traveled from Olivia's face down to her shoes and back up again. "You are Olivia Bennet?" she asked with barely concealed disbelief. "Yes." "Interesting." Miranda exchanged glances with the man beside her. "I expected someone more polished." Derek Cole, a man with slicked back hair and a watch that probably cost more than a car, leaned back in his chair. "Did you get lost on your way to a charity shop interview?" He smiled at his own joke. The others laughed. Vanessa Park, a sharp-featured woman with designer glasses, added, "Maybe she thinks this is a casual Friday event." Olivia remained calm. She placed her folder on the table and sat down without being invited. "Shall we begin?" Gregory Stone, older than the others, with gray temples and an air of superiority, picked up her folder with 2 fingers as if it might be contaminated. He opened it briefly, then closed it. "This is your entire presentation?" "That contains my professional history, project portfolio, and technical certifications," Olivia explained. Julian West, the youngest of the group, but perhaps the most arrogant, laughed outright. "Technical certifications? What did you do? Watch some online tutorials?" "I have led system architecture projects for multinational corporations over the past decade," Olivia replied evenly. Miranda interrupted. "Let me be direct. We have standards here at Sterling Global. Those standards include presentation, sophistication, and frankly a certain level of class." You walked in here looking like you came from a street market. How do you expect us to take you seriously? Olivia felt the words like small cuts, but she kept her composure. I came here to discuss my qualifications for the role, not my wardrobe choices. Your wardrobe reflects your judgment, Vanessa said coldly. And your judgment seems questionable at best. Derek stood and walked to a small refrigerator built into the wall. He pulled out a bottle of sparkling water and poured it into a glass. He walked over to Olivia with a false smile. You look a bit tense. Maybe this will help you cool down. Before Olivia could react, he poured the entire glass of water over her head. The cold liquid soaked through her hair, ran down her face, and drenched her blouse. The shock took her breath away for a moment. Water dripped onto the table and her folder. The room erupted in laughter. Now that is more appropriate, Derek said, returning to his seat. The drowned rat look suits you better. Olivia sat completely still. She wiped the water from her eyes with the back of her hand. Her heart pounded, but she refused to cry. She refused to run. Are we finished with the theatrics? She asked quietly. Or would you like to continue? Miranda smirked. Oh, we are just getting started. Let us see if you can actually do anything useful. She pulled out a stack of papers from a drawer. These are technical problems. Solve them. You have 10 minutes. No computer. Just pen and paper. The problems were complex. Code optimization, system integration challenges, algorithmic puzzles. Olivia took the pen offered to her and began working immediately. Her hand moved quickly across the pages, writing solutions with precision. The executives watched with bored expressions. Gregory checked his phone. Vanessa filed her nails. Julian recorded Olivia with his mobile device, whispering comments to the camera about her appearance. When Olivia finished, she placed the papers in front of Miranda. Done. Miranda barely glanced at them. Instead, she took the pages, stood up, and tore them in half. Then in half again. She dropped the pieces into a wastebasket. Not even worth reading. Obviously garbage. You did not even look at my answers, Olivia said, her voice still controlled but strained. I do not need to look, Miranda replied. Someone like you could not possibly solve those problems correctly. Gregory pulled out his phone and made a call. Security. We have an unwanted visitor on 42. Send someone up immediately. Unwanted? Olivia stood. I was invited for this interview. It was clearly a mistake, Vanessa said. This company has a reputation to maintain. We cannot have people like you representing us. 2 security guards arrived within minutes. One of them grabbed Olivia's folder from the table. The other took her arm firmly. Time to go, ma'am. Wait, Olivia said. Those are my personal documents. The guard holding her folder opened it and pulled out her papers. He glanced at them briefly, then dropped the entire folder into the wastebasket with the torn test papers. You will not need these anymore. Julian was still recording. Make sure you get her face when she leaves, he told the guards. I want to remember this. The guards escorted Olivia out of the conference room. She walked between them down the hallway as office workers peeked through glass walls, watching. Some looked away quickly. Others stared with curiosity. In the elevator, one guard spoke. You should not come back here. People like you do not belong in places like this. Olivia did not respond. She stared straight ahead. When they reached the lobby, the guards walked her directly to the exit doors. One of them pushed them open and gestured outside. Have a nice day. She stepped into the hot Singapore sun. The humidity hit her immediately, making her wet clothes feel even more uncomfortable. She walked to a nearby bench under a tree and sat down. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled her phone from her bag. She dialed a number she knew better than any other. Alexander, she said when he answered. Her voice was steady, but contained emotion beneath the surface. The interview did not go as planned. What happened? His tone shifted immediately from casual to concerned. They humiliated me. They poured water on me, destroyed my papers, and had security remove me. She paused. They treated me like I was nothing. Silence on the other end. Then Alexander spoke, his voice quiet but carrying unmistakable weight. Where are you now? Outside the building. Stay there. I am coming. Olivia ended the call and sat on that bench, damp and exhausted, watching people walk past without seeing her. She thought about the woman crying in the bathroom. She thought about how many others had experienced the same cruelty in that glass tower. She thought about what came next. 20 minutes later, a message arrived to every executive at Sterling Global Technologies. It came from the office of the founder. The subject line read, "Mandatory meeting. Attendance required. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Nobody knew what it meant, but everyone felt the shift in the air. The executive conference room on the 43rd floor of Sterling Global Technologies had never felt so tense. Every senior leader, department head, and key stakeholder had been summoned. The message had been clear. Attendance was not optional. Absence would be considered resignation. Miranda Hastings arrived early. Her crimson blazer replaced today with a more conservative black suit. She had spent the previous evening trying to understand why the founder himself had called this meeting. Alexander Sterling rarely appeared at headquarters anymore. He managed operations remotely from various global locations. Trusting his executive team to handle daily affairs, Derek Cole walked in moments later, adjusting his expensive watch nervously. Vanessa Park followed, her designer glasses perched perfectly on her nose, though her usual confidence seemed slightly diminished. Gregory Stone entered with his typical air of superiority, but even he seemed uncertain. Julian West was the last of the five to arrive, still smirking, still believing himself untouchable. The room filled quickly. Investors joined via video conference from London, New York, Tokyo. Their faces filled the massive screens along one wall. Board members took seats around the enormous oval table. Junior executives stood along the back wall, grateful to be included but nervous about the reason. At exactly 8 o'clock, double doors opened. Alexander Sterling entered first. He was 45 years old, tall, with dark hair showing distinguished gray at the temples. He wore a simple charcoal suit with no tie, his expression unreadable. His presence commanded immediate silence. Behind him walked Olivia. She wore the same cream blouse and navy skirt from yesterday. The water stains were still visible on the fabric. Her hair was pulled back in the same simple style. She carried no folder, no papers, nothing except her dignity. Miranda's face went pale. Derek's hand froze on his water glass. Vanessa removed her glasses slowly, as if hoping her vision was deceiving her. Gregory sat up straighter, his expression shifting from confusion to concern. Julian's smirk vanished completely. Alexander walked to the head of the table. Olivia stood beside him, her posture straight, her eyes calm. She looked at each of the five executives in turn, her gaze steady and unwavering. "Good morning," Alexander began, his voice measured and professional. "Thank you all for attending on short notice. What I am about to share with you is not easy for me to present, but it is absolutely necessary." He picked up a remote control and activated the main display screen. "Yesterday, something happened in this building that represents a complete failure of our company values. Rather than tell you about it, I will show you." The screen flickered to life. Security camera footage appeared, time-stamped from the previous morning. The angles showed the conference room on the 42nd floor from multiple perspectives. The audio was crystal clear. The room watched as Olivia entered the conference room. They heard Miranda's first comment about expecting someone more polished. They heard Derek's joke about the charity shop. They watched the escalating cruelty, the laughter, the mockery. Several people in the room shifted uncomfortably. Some of the investors leaned closer to their cameras, expressions hardening. The footage continued. Derek pouring water over Olivia's head. The executives laughing. Miranda tearing up the test papers without reading them. Gregory calling security. The guards removing Olivia, while Julian recorded everything on his phone. When the video ended, the silence in the room was absolute. Alexander let that silence stretch for a long moment before speaking. "The woman you just watched being humiliated, degraded, and physically assaulted is Olivia Bennett Sterling. My wife, and more importantly to this discussion, the co-founder of this company." The reaction was immediate. Gasps echoed around the room. The five executives looked like they had been struck. Miranda's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Derek's face turned red, then white. Vanessa stared at the table. Gregory closed his eyes briefly. Julian looked genuinely terrified for the first time in his life. Alexander continued, his voice never rising but carrying unmistakable authority. Olivia and I started Sterling Global Technologies 15 years ago in a small apartment with one computer and an idea. While I focused on business development and client relations, Olivia built the technological foundation of everything we have become. He pressed another button. The screen now showed lines of code, system architecture, diagrams, and patent documents. This is the core operating system that runs our entire global infrastructure. The artificial intelligence that powers our client solutions. The security protocols that protect billions of dollars in transactions daily. Olivia designed all of it. He zoomed in on digital signatures and timestamps. These documents show her contributions dating back to our founding. Every major innovation, every breakthrough that gave us competitive advantage, every system that our competitors try to copy, Olivia created them. One of the investors spoke from the Tokyo screen. Mr. Sterling, we had no idea. This is extraordinary. He had no idea because Olivia prefers to work without recognition, Alexander replied. She has never sought credit or attention. She simply builds, creates, and solves problems. That is who she is. He turned to face the 5 executives directly. Yesterday, she came here at my request. I asked her to apply for a position using her maiden name, Bennett, to evaluate our hiring practices. I wanted to see if we truly valued talent and merit, or if we had become the kind of company that judges people by their clothing and appearance. His voice took on a harder edge. You showed me exactly what we have become. And it is unacceptable. Miranda finally found her voice, though it trembled. Mr. Sterling, if we had known who she was, we would never have treated her that way. Olivia spoke for the first time since entering the room. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, but it cut through the space like a blade. That is precisely the problem, Miranda. Respect should not depend on who someone is connected to. It should be given to every person who walks through that door. Alexander nodded. Olivia is correct. Your statement just confirmed that you believe some people deserve respect while others do not. That is not a misunderstanding. That is a fundamental character flaw. He looked at each executive in turn. Derek Cole. You physically assaulted a job candidate by pouring water on her head. In any civilized workplace, that alone warrants immediate termination and potentially criminal charges. Derek started to speak, but Alexander held up his hand. Vanessa Park, you participated actively in the mockery and discrimination. You made judgments based entirely on appearance and economic status. Gregory Stone, you called security to remove someone who had every right to be here, simply because you decided she did not meet your arbitrary standards. He turned to Julian. Julian West, you recorded the entire incident on your phone, laughing throughout, treating someone's humiliation as entertainment. That video is now evidence of your complete lack of professional judgment. Finally, he looked at Miranda. Miranda Hastings, you led this. You set the tone. You destroyed her test papers without reading them because you decided in advance that her work had no value. You wrote the word failure on her documents. Alexander paused. Actually, Olivia, would you tell them about those test papers? Olivia stepped forward slightly. The problems you gave me were advanced algorithm challenges, system integration scenarios, and code optimization puzzles. I solved all of them correctly. In fact, I solved them using methods more efficient than the ones currently implemented in our systems. She maintained eye contact with Miranda. You never looked at my answers because you had already decided I was worthless. You missed an opportunity to learn something valuable because of your prejudice. One of the board members spoke up. What is the company's legal exposure from this incident? Alexander's lawyer, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, stood. Substantial. We have clear evidence of discrimination, assault, harassment, and hostile work environment. If Ms. Sterling were not the co-founder, she could sue this company for millions. As it is, any of the 5 executives could face personal legal consequences if she chooses to pursue charges. The 5 executives looked increasingly desperate. Vanessa spoke up, her voice cracking. I apologize sincerely. I made a terrible mistake. I have worked so hard to get where I am, and I think that made me judgmental toward others. I am truly sorry. Olivia looked at her with something like sympathy. I understand that impulse, Vanessa. Many people who struggle to reach success become protective of their position, but that does not make it right, and it does not excuse what you did. Gregory tried next. I grew up with nothing. I understand what it is like to be underestimated. Perhaps that is why I overcompensated by being too harsh. I apologize. Your background makes your actions worse, not better, Alexander said quietly. You knew what it felt like, and you chose to inflict that pain on someone else anyway. Derek was sweating now. It was meant as a joke. The water thing was just supposed to lighten the mood. I never intended to actually hurt anyone. You assaulted her, Alexander said flatly. Intent is irrelevant. You poured water on another human being to humiliate her in front of others. That is not a joke. That is cruelty. Julian, who had been silent, finally spoke. I will delete the video. I will apologize publicly. I will do whatever it takes to make this right. The video is already evidence, the lawyer interjected. Deleting it now would be destruction of evidence. And your apology means nothing. You recorded someone suffering for your entertainment? Miranda, seeing no way out, tried a different approach. Perhaps we could all undergo sensitivity training. We could learn from this experience and become better leaders. This is not about training. This is about character. And you have all shown your character clearly. He pressed another button on the remote. The screen now showed news headlines from various business publications. Sterling Global executives under investigation for workplace discrimination. Tech company faces scandal over treatment of job candidate.
Video.
Evidence shows systemic problems at Sterling Global. Story leaked last night, Alexander said. Our public relations team has been managing inquiries from journalists around the world. Our stock price is already affected. Several clients have requested meetings to discuss our corporate culture. This is a crisis. You let that sink in before continuing. But it is also an opportunity. An opportunity to demonstrate that we take our values seriously. That we do not protect abusers and bullies just because they hold impressive titles. Alexander looked at the camera screen showing the international investors. I am recommending to the board the immediate termination of 5 executives for gross misconduct, violation of company policy, and actions that bring disrepute to Sterling Global Technologies. One by one, he named them. Miranda Hastings, Derek Cole, Vanessa Park, Gregory Stone, Julian West. Effective immediately, you are no longer employed by this company. Security will escort you from the building. You will have 1 hour to collect personal items under supervision. All access credentials are already deactivated. Miranda stood suddenly. You cannot do this. I have 20 years with this company. 20 years of work cannot erase what you did, Alexander replied. Your actions yesterday revealed who you truly are. And that person does not belong here. Derek tried pleading. Please, I have a mortgage, children, in private school, obligations. This will destroy me. You should have considered those obligations before you chose to assault someone, Olivia said softly. Actions have consequences, even for people who are accustomed to avoiding them. The board member who had asked about legal exposure spoke again. I vote in favor of the terminations. We cannot have people like this representing our company.
Oh.
Other board members voiced agreement. The investors on the screens nodded their approval. Within minutes, the decision was unanimous. Security personnel entered the room. They approached the 5 executives professionally but firmly. Miranda tried to maintain her dignity as she was led out, but her hands shook. Derek walked with his head down, already crying. Vanessa left quickly, wanting only to escape. Gregory moved stiffly, his face a mask. Julian looked back once at Alexander and Olivia, and in his eyes was the first genuine understanding of what he had lost. When they were gone, Alexander addressed the remaining executives. Let me be absolutely clear about expectations going forward. This company was built on the principle that talent, innovation, and character matter more than appearance. connections, or background. We seem to have lost sight of that principle, he gestured to Olivia. Effective immediately, Olivia will lead a complete review of our hiring, promotion, and workplace culture policies. Every process will be examined. Every practice will be questioned. If you have been part of creating a toxic environment, now is the time to change. If you cannot or will not change, you should leave voluntarily. Olivia stepped forward. I am not interested in revenge or punishment, she said. I am interested in building a company where the woman I met crying in the bathroom yesterday never has to experience that pain again. Where talent is recognized, regardless of how it is packaged. Where respect is given freely and humanity is valued above everything else. She paused, looking around the room at faces that now showed a mixture of shame, respect, and determination. Some of you may be wondering if you will be punished for past actions. My answer is this: show me who you are going forward. Show me through your choices, your leadership, and your treatment of others. That is all I ask. The meeting concluded shortly after. As people filed out, many approached Olivia to apologize, to express support, or simply to introduce themselves properly. She greeted each person with grace, already beginning the work of rebuilding the culture from within. That afternoon, terminated executives cleared their offices under security supervision. Word spread quickly through the building. By evening, the story had gone viral across professional networks. Comment sections filled with reactions ranging from shock to admiration to stories from others who had experienced similar treatment. The business world watched closely. Some applauded Alexander's decisive action. Others questioned whether the punishments were too severe. But one thing became clear: Sterling Global Technologies had drawn a line. Character mattered. Cruelty had consequences, and no title or tenure could protect someone who violated basic human dignity. Winter had come to Singapore in the only way it could, with slightly cooler temperatures and occasional rain that washed the city clean. Sterling Global Technologies had changed dramatically in the months since the incident that everyone now referred to simply as the reckoning. The changes were visible and invisible, structural and cultural. The company had implemented new interview protocols that focused entirely on skills and potential. Candidates now went through blind initial screenings where their names, photos, and backgrounds were hidden. Only their work and answers mattered. Training programs had been redesigned to emphasize empathy, diversity, and recognition of unconscious bias. Senior leaders participated in regular sessions where they discussed failures and lessons learned. The company had hired a chief culture officer whose sole responsibility was ensuring that the values stated on the website matched the reality of daily experience, but the most significant changes were human and personal. Olivia had indeed led the cultural transformation, but she did so quietly. She met with employees at every level, listening to their experiences and ideas. She sat in on interviews, not to judge, but to observe and learn. She created anonymous feedback systems that actually received responses and led to action. She also did something unexpected. She started a mentorship program specifically for people who had been rejected, overlooked, or underestimated. She called it the Second Chance Initiative, offered training, resources, and connections to individuals who had talent but lacked opportunity. The young woman Olivia had met crying in the bathroom that first day became the program's first success story. Now working in Sterling Global's innovation department, Alexander, for his part, had become more visible in the company's daily operations. He realized that his absence had allowed toxic behaviors to flourish unchecked. Now he made it a point to walk through offices, eat lunch in the common areas, and engage with employees at all levels. His presence was no longer distant and intimidating, but accessible and engaged. The terminated executives, however, faced very different futures. Miranda Hastings had tried to find similar positions at competitor companies, but her reputation preceded her. The video of her tearing up Olivia's papers had been seen by millions. Recruiters politely declined her applications. She eventually found work at a much smaller firm for a fraction of her previous salary. And she kept her head down, aware that she was lucky to be employed at all. Vanessa Park had left the country. taking a position in Australia where the story had less immediate recognition. But even there, during her first week, a colleague mentioned the Sterling Global incident casually in conversation, not knowing Vanessa's connection. Vanessa excused herself and cried in her car for an hour, realizing that her actions would follow her everywhere. Gregory Stone had retired early, claiming health reasons, but everyone knew the truth. His adult children had distanced themselves from him after seeing the footage. His wife had filed for separation. He spent his days alone in their large house, wondering how decades of career success had evaporated so completely because of one morning's cruelty. Julian West had faced the harshest consequences. His family, wealthy and influential, had publicly disowned him. His trust fund had been frozen. The video he had recorded meant as mockery had become evidence of his character, and it circulated endlessly online. Unable to find professional work anywhere in his field, he had taken a job in retail, earning minimum wage and living in a small apartment far from the luxury he had known. But it was Derek Cole whose fate had taken the most dramatic turn. On a Tuesday evening in December, Olivia left the Sterling Global offices later than usual. She had been reviewing proposals for the company's new charitable foundation, an initiative designed to provide technology education to underserved communities. The work filled her with purpose, and she often lost track of time as she walked toward the train station, took a route that passed through the central business district. The streets were busy with evening commuters, street vendors, and tourists. The city glowed with lights from shops and restaurants. Near the entrance to the station, something caught her eye. A figure sat against the wall, partially hidden in shadows between two closed storefronts. As she approached, recognition hit her like a physical impact. Derek Cole sat on a piece of cardboard, his back against the wall. He wore clothes that had once been expensive, but were now worn and dirty. His hair, once perfectly styled, hung limp and unwashed. His face carried the kind of exhaustion that goes deeper than lack of sleep. The exhaustion of loss and regret. In front of him sat a small cardboard sign written in unsteady letters, "Please help. Anything appreciated. Thank you." Olivia stopped walking. For a moment, she considered passing by, pretending she had not seen him. She had no obligation to this man who had humiliated her, who had poured water on her head while others laughed. She could simply continue to the station and let the universe take its course. But she did not move on instead. She approached slowly. Derek looked up, and when their eyes met, something broke in his expression. Shame, recognition, and something like relief all crossed his face at once. "Mrs. Sterling," he said, his voice hoarse. "I did not expect to see you." "Hello, Derek." Olivia's voice was neutral, neither warm nor cold. He looked down at his hands, unable to maintain eye contact. "I suppose you find this satisfying. To see me like this." "No," Olivia said honestly. "I do not find satisfaction in anyone's suffering." Derek laughed bitterly. "You should. I deserve this." "I deserve worse than this." Olivia was quiet for a moment, studying him. "What happened?" "Everything," he said. "My wife left and took the children. Could not handle the embarrassment, the media attention, the judgment from her friends. My house was foreclosed after I could not find work. No one would hire me. My name is poison in every industry." He gestured to his surroundings. "I burned through my savings in 3 months. Then I started selling things. My car, my watch, my furniture. Eventually, there was nothing left to sell. I tried to leave Singapore, but where would I go? The story followed me everywhere." "So you ended up here," Olivia said. "I ended up here," he confirmed, "begging for coins from strangers. Some days I make enough for food. Other days people recognize me and spit at my feet. I cannot even be angry about it. I earned every moment of this." Olivia reached into her bag. Derek watched her hand move, unsure what to expect. She pulled out her wallet and opened it. From inside, she removed a single coin, a $5 coin, significant but not extravagant. She held it between her fingers, looking at it thoughtfully. The coin caught the light from the street lamps, gleaming silver. Then she bent down and placed it carefully in Derek's palm. Her hand briefly touched his, and he flinched at the contact. not from disgust, but from the weight of the gesture's meaning. "Thank you," he whispered, and his voice broke. Why would you help me after what I did?" Olivia straightened up. She looked at him with eyes that had seen cruelty and chosen a different path. Because someone's value as a human being does not disappear when they make terrible choices. And because I want to live in a world where redemption is possible, even for people who do terrible things. Tears ran down Derek's face, cutting clean lines through the dirt on his cheeks. "I am so sorry. I know those words mean nothing, but I am sorry. Every day I think about what I did. Every night I relive that moment. I would do anything to take it back." "I know you are sorry," Olivia said. "And I believe that you mean it. But Derek, being sorry is not enough. The question is whether you will be different. Different how? Look at me. I have nothing. I am nothing." "You have this moment," Olivia replied. "You have the choice to let this destroy you completely, or to let it rebuild you into something better. That is the only question that matters." She started to turn away, then paused. "There is a community center 3 blocks east of here. They provide meals, shelter, and job training resources. Tell them Olivia Sterling sent you. They will help you get started." Derek stared at her, unable to comprehend such grace. "Why would you do that?" "Because breaking people does not fix anything," Olivia said simply. "And because I remember who I was before any of this happened, I was someone who believed people could change. I still want to be that person." She walked away before Derek could respond further. She did not look back. She did not need to see his reaction or receive his gratitude. She had done what felt right, what aligned with the values she had been fighting to restore in her company and in the world. As she descended into the station and boarded her train home, Olivia felt something settle in her chest. Not satisfaction exactly, but peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you have responded to cruelty with humanity, to hate with compassion, to brokenness with the possibility of healing. The transformation continues 3 months after the encounter with Derek. The sender was an address she did not recognize, but the subject line caught her attention. "Thank you for the second chance." She opened it. "Dear Mrs. Sterling, you may not remember our brief encounter 3 months ago. I was the man sitting outside the train station, homeless and hopeless. You gave me a coin and directions to a community center. More importantly, you gave me something I had not felt in months, the belief that I could be more than my worst moment. I went to the center the next day. I enrolled in their job training program. I worked with their counselors to address the depression and shame that had consumed me. Slowly, very slowly, I began to rebuild. Last week, I accepted a position as a warehouse supervisor. It is not glamorous. It pays a fraction of what I used to earn. But it is honest work, and I am grateful for it every single day. I am also attending therapy to understand why I became the person who could treat others with such cruelty. I have reached out to apologize to everyone I hurt, though I do not expect forgiveness. This email is not to ask anything of you. It is simply to tell you that your kindness saved my life. Not the coin, but the recognition that I was still human, still capable of change, still worth the smallest investment of hope. I will never forget what you did, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that grace. With deepest respect and gratitude, Derek Cole. Then she forwarded it to Alexander with a simple note, "This is why we do the work." The legacy 1 year after the interview that changed everything. Sterling Global Technologies hosted its annual company conference. Over 3,000 employees gathered in a massive convention center to celebrate achievements, share innovations, and align on future direction. Alexander opened the conference with a video, a montage showing the company's journey over the past 12 months. It included interviews with new employees who shared their hiring experiences, stories of promotions based purely on merit, and testimonials about cultural changes that had made the workplace more inclusive and humane. Then Olivia took the stage. She rarely spoke at public events, preferring to work behind the scenes. But Alexander had convinced her that her voice mattered, that people needed to hear directly from her about what they had built together. "A year ago," she began, her voice calm but carrying to every corner of the massive room, "I walked into an interview, and experienced something that many of you have also experienced at some point in your careers. I was judged not by my abilities, my knowledge, or my potential, but by my appearance, my clothing, and assumptions about my worth. The room was completely silent. That experience was painful, but it was also revealing. It showed me that our company, which we had built on principles of innovation and merit, had drifted away from those principles. We had allowed a culture to develop where appearances mattered more than substance, where connections mattered more than capability, where cruelty was tolerated as long as it was subtle enough. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. We made a choice that day. We chose to confront that culture directly. We chose to demonstrate through actions, not just words, that dignity and respect are not negotiable, that everyone, regardless of what they look like or where they come from, deserves to be seen, heard, and valued. Applause began, but Olivia raised her hand gently. Please wait, because the truth is, we are not finished. Culture is not something you fix once and then forget about. It requires constant attention, constant vigilance, constant choice. She smiled. Every day, each of you makes choices about how to treat your colleagues, your subordinates, your competitors, even the person who delivers your lunch. Those choices create the culture, not mission statements, not policies. Your choices. So I want to challenge you today. Look around this room. You are surrounded by brilliant, talented, creative people. Some of them look like you. Many do not. Some come from privilege. Many do not. But every single person here has something valuable to contribute. Your job, my job, all of our jobs, is to make sure that value is recognized and nurtured. She concluded with words that would become famous within the company. We do not measure success by quarterly earnings or market share, though those things matter. We measure success by whether the person who walks through our doors tomorrow will be seen for who they truly are. That is the company we are building. That is the legacy we will leave. The applause this time was thunderous and sustained. After the conference, Olivia returned to her office to find a handwritten note on her desk. It was from a young programmer who had started 3 months earlier. I was about to give up on this industry after being rejected from 27 companies, it read. Then I interviewed here. For the first time, someone looked at my code instead of my accent. Someone asked about my ideas instead of where I went to school. I got the job, but more importantly, I got my confidence back. Thank you for creating a place where people like me belong. Olivia placed the note in a folder she kept in her desk drawer. It contained dozens of similar messages, each one a reminder of why the work mattered, why the difficult choices had been necessary, why grace and accountability could coexist. Full circle, 2 years after the incident. Olivia returned to the company bathroom on the ground floor, where she had met the crying woman before her fateful interview. She sometimes stopped there when she needed a moment of quiet reflection. As she entered, she heard a sound that stopped her in her tracks. Soft sobbing from one of the stalls. Olivia waited. The stall door opened, and a young woman emerged. She looked early 20s, dressed professionally, her eyes red from crying. "Are you okay?" Olivia asked gently, the same words she had spoken 2 years before. The woman wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed. "I am fine. Just nervous. I have my interview in 15 minutes, here at Sterling Global." "Yes. I have been trying to get into this company for a year. I have applied 4 times. This is my first interview. What are you nervous about?" Olivia asked. The young woman hesitated. "Honestly, I am nervous because I heard what this company did 2 years ago. How they fired all those executives for treating someone badly. I am nervous because the standards are so high now. I am worried I will not measure up." Olivia smiled warmly. "Can I tell you a secret?" The woman nodded. "The standards are not about being perfect. They are about being real. Be honest about what you know and what you do not know. Show them how you think, how you solve problems, how you treat others. That is all they want to see." "Really? Really? And if they do not treat you with respect during that interview, I want you to come find me immediately. My name is Olivia Sterling. My office is on the 43rd floor. The young woman's eyes widened with recognition. You are her. You are the woman from the story. I am a woman who had a difficult experience and tried to turn it into something meaningful, Olivia corrected gently. Now go. You are going to be wonderful. The woman left with renewed confidence. Olivia watched her go, then looked at her own reflection in the mirror. The same face, but different eyes. Eyes that had seen both cruelty and kindness. That had witnessed both the worst and best of human nature. That had chosen hope, even when hope seemed foolish. She thought about Derek, now working steadily and rebuilding his life one day at a time. She thought about the thousands of employees who now worked in an environment that valued their humanity. She thought about the young woman who had just left, about to have an experience vastly different from the one Olivia had endured. Change was slow. Culture was fragile. The work was never finished, but it was possible. That was the lesson. That was the gift. That was the truth she would carry forward. As Olivia left the bathroom and returned to the elevator, she passed through the lobby where it had all begun. The same marble floors, the same glass doors, the same city visible through the windows. But everything was different, because people had chosen to make it different. And in that choice, repeated day after day by thousands of individuals, lay the quiet revolution that no headline could capture and no story could fully tell. It was simply the choice to see each other clearly, to treat each other kindly, to build something better than what came before. That was the ending. But it was also the beginning, because every day, someone new walked through those doors, carrying their own story, their own dreams, their own hopes, and whether their experience would be one of dignity or cruelty depended entirely on the choices made by those already inside. Olivia understood that now. She understood that power was not about titles or authority. It was about deciding, in each moment, which kind of world you wanted to create. And she had made her choice. She would spend the rest of her career and her life creating spaces where talent was recognized, humanity was honored, and grace was possible even in the hardest moments, because in the end, that was all that mattered. Not revenge, not punishment, not even justice in its harshest form. What mattered was whether, when tested, you chose to break people or to build them, to destroy or to heal, to close doors or to open them. Olivia had made her choice, and in doing so, she had helped thousands of others make theirs. The story of her interview would be told and retold in business schools, corporate training sessions, and conversations about workplace culture for years to come. But Olivia herself would continue working quietly, building systems, solving problems, and creating opportunities, because that was who she had always been. Not someone who sought the spotlight, but someone who built the stage on which others could shine. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story.